Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies for delay. We were just waiting for our keynote speaker to come on. She's not on at the moment, but we'll proceed without her. My name is Akinkunmi Filani. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Mixta Africa. Before we get right into the session, I would like to introduce Mixta Africa to you. Mixta Africa is a Pan-African real estate and infrastructure developer. We have a track record of developing world-class real estate and building sustainable communities across the African continent, as well as transforming African cities. We currently have operating subsidiaries in Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Tunisia, and Morocco, and have project experience track record across even more countries, including Algeria, Egypt, and Mauritania. Now, perhaps we can give you a bit of context as to why we're doing this. Of course, we recognize that Nigerians in the diaspora are an important segment not to be ignored. We know that remittances from the African diaspora to Africa are an important driver of economic activity. And so we see them as a very important and valuable segment insofar as sustainable economic development in African communities is concerned. Also, the continued maintenance of political, cultural, and economic ties with home countries is very, very important. And we, as a business, believe that we have a part to play in ensuring those links are sustained and evolve and are developed over time. So Mixta Africa is increasingly interested in serving its overseas customers deeply and in a more valuable and efficient manner. And so we see this webinar as an important tool in enabling and deepening our engagement with the diaspora market, a very important segment of the economy. I'm just going to take a pause there and check to see if our guest speaker is on. If she isn't on, perhaps we can move on to the panel discussion. But I would also just take a few moments to tell you a bit about what we've done with regards to our track record over the past few years. As I mentioned, we're in the business of building sustainable communities and transforming African cities. And as a subsidiary of the ARM Group, we definitely have a strong infrastructure track record that dates back almost 20 years, well over 20 years, actually, I would say. Within Lagos and within Nigeria, more specifically, we have our iconic Lagos New Town, which is a new burgeoning community that will at peak have well over 200,000 residents. Lagos New Town, we've developed Beachwood Park, our signature affordable housing development. The best kept secret, no longer a secret because I know many of you are familiar with it, Lackaway Lakes Golf and Country Estate, the first estate of its kind in this region. It's a 308-hectare golf estate that boasts a hospitality resort, an 18-hole championship golf course, and over 200 real estate properties. And of course, more communities being developed on the estate. Within Lagos New Town, we also have Adiva, which is a community with over 250 homes and plots, also servicing that axis. And we also have an emerging commercial and industrial hub, the Lagos New Town commercial axis, which is bordered by the Lagos New Town Road, which we're heavily in infrastructure development over the next few years. We'll be talking a bit more about all of these as we go along today. But in the interest of time, and so that we don't waste any more time, we would like to move straight to our panel discussion. I would just do a check to make sure we have all our panelists on here. Can the team please give me the go-ahead to proceed with the panel discussion? Okay, I think we'll proceed with the panel discussion. On the panel, we have currently on the panel We have Mr. Tayo Odusi, who is the CEO of Northcote. We also have Mrs. Tosin Ajose, Managing Partner and Lead Advisor at Deal HQ. We have Mr. Shina Atilola, who is a Divisional Head Retail and Consumer Banking at Sterling Bank. And I believe those are the panelists we have on for now. So we'll just proceed with the panel discussion and give opportunity to the audience to ask questions afterwards. I should also mention that if you'd like to ask questions, you should use the Q&A box. No question is too small or big. Nothing is off the table. We'll be happy to take as many questions as possible on any aspects of the discussion. You can also make commentary once the panel discussion is over in the chat box. That will be enabled after the panel discussion is over. Okay, so I would actually like to start with Tayo Odusi of Northcote. And of course, you know, when investors think about real estate investing, they think in terms of homes, the value, the returns on their investment, the security and safety on their investment. But I think what is always really important is to understand that investment context of growth in an economy or in a geography. And we've seen tremendous growth in urban areas in Nigeria over the last 2 decades. And projecting 5 to 10 years from now, how do you think the economic growth and the urban dynamics and the demography and the trends we've seen will affect the real estate market? We'd love to hear from you, Tayo.
Hi, Rolake. Thank you so much to you and to Mixter for setting this up. I think it's a very critical conversation to have for the diaspora market. As you're aware, today may be marking the beginning, hopefully not of World War III, but just potentially brings to mind, you know, a very important concept in investing, which is diversification, right? A lot of times people in the diaspora are quite comfortable because obviously they've relocated for economic reasons or other reasons, and sometimes may not consider investing in other countries. And a lot of times there's nowhere you understand more than your home country. And that's why it's always a good idea, you know, to have diversified portfolio of investment, and real estate being at the top of that. But just to get to your question on the Nigerian real estate market as a whole, it's been an interesting market to track. Obviously, the team that I lead, Northcote, we track you know, the real estate market, carry out a lot of research that we have available for free. We also do commissioned research that we make available to those that commission us, essentially. And so it's a market we've been tracking. We also track the Ghana market and some other West Africa markets. But in Nigeria in particular, obviously in the last, say, 5 to 10 years before now, there was a lot of growth in commercial real estate. We saw a lot of internationals coming in into the retail, office segments, hospitality segments, and of course, as well in the residential segments. And that has, you know, created a lot of the A-grade assets that we see today, a lot of the A-grade shopping malls that we see. And a lot of these malls, offices were enjoying quite good uptake over the last 5-10 years. But we also know that in the last 2 years, there's been another major event, which is the pandemic. And that's essentially shifted the market a bit. Obviously, office market was impacted. Retail was also impacted for the period of the lockdown. But what we found was there was a lot of pent-up demand, and retail has since rebounded. But one segment that has now grown even much more significantly is the residential real estate market. And there's a chart I just wanted to show. Okay, I'm allowed to share my screen now. This is, I mean, this is just some portion of our real estate market outlook report that we publish every year. And this is this is a mobility tracker, is a tool that we ordinarily, drag out of some Google analytics data. And this essentially shows the movement of Nigerians between January to December 2021. And thanks for all of you that keep your location services on. It's because of you that we're able to get this kind of data, right? And the caramel portion of this chart essentially is showing residential uses. The brown thick one is showing grocery and pharmacy. The black line is retail and recreation, while the red one is workplace. And this essentially tells us that most Nigerians were at home most of 2021. Now, that ordinarily should be the case even if there was no pandemic, but it should not be as stuck to the workplace, because pre-2021, pre-2020, 2020, the red line was almost contribute, in competition with the caramel lines, right? But now people are spending most of their time working at home. So this is no longer to ask you, I don't need to ask people, are you working from home? Are you doing, the data, essentially shows us, and this is empirical, this is data from, just aggregating data from everyone's location, those of us that leave our location services on our phones, just aggregating that data. And this essentially just shows the second best place that people are spending time, that's groceries and pharmacies. And there'll be a little bit of retail in there as well, all right, because some places are aggregated as both retail and pharmacies and groceries. And then you can see the next best place that we're spending after that is the black line, which is retail and recreation. And the office is the last, is the least place that people are spending time. And I've just shown this to highlight how the real estate market essentially has morphed, in that residential real estate, is really winning as it is. We always track, for the past 7 years, we've tracked the prices of 3-bedroom flats and 4-bedroom houses. We just selected those two types of property to track their prices. And for the first time in 7 years, demand for 4-bedroom houses, overtook demand for 3-bedroom flats. And that just again speaks to the fact that there have been a lot of relocations and people are demanding more space. If I was just to take a census of people on this call, and you'll find out that a lot of people changed houses between 2020 and 2021. I mean, if you did change house, I'll just be curious if you just put in the chat, I did relocate, between 2020 and 2021. And that was just because people are working, spending more time at home, working from home. And so they just realized that they needed more space. And that just speaks to the traction that residential real estate is currently having. There's been significant growth in the residential real estate market. Like I said, pent-up demand for retail real estate. The office segment is not doing quite as great, especially the A-grade office segment. Another segment of the market that we found quite interesting, especially in a pandemic. For us market analysts, we essentially use past performance to try and understand what's going to happen in the future. And so when the pandemic started, we said, when was the last time we saw a pandemic? And we said, good enough, in Africa, we saw one just 5 years ago, Ebola. And we knew how Ebola decimated our hospitality market. So we immediately just said, this pandemic is going to decimate the hospitality market. I'm happy to say that we couldn't have been more wrong. Right? There's been a lot of demand for hospitality offerings, partly again because of maybe staycations, or people are just a lot, tired to stay in their homes or whatever. I mean, I really don't know. I can't stand here to say I know all the factors that boosted the hospitality segment, but that's another segment of the real estate market that has been doing well. And the reality is that we believe that these factors will stay true at least for the next 24 to 36 months. I know you want me to talk about a longer horizon, 5 to 10. Well,
that's fine. We can.
I'll not want to stake my credibility that far.
No worries, Tayo. Really, really fascinating stuff, actually. We can cut to that. It would also be particularly interesting to see how that is informing what types of units developers are now creating in the market, given these trends. But we can look at that a bit later. I'm also conscious of the fact that we now have our keynote speaker on the call. So if I would just crave the indulgence of the other panel members, I think what has worked really well is the fact that Tayo has actually given us a nice market overview to start with, and we'll come back to the panel discussion after we have the keynote. So I'm going to introduce our keynote, who is none other than Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa, who, as many of you will know, has several times been described as a sterling Nigerian Amazon. She has been an outstandingly brilliant broadcaster who has had a long career across key industries. She's a graduate of IFE. She holds a master's degree from UNILAG and also attended the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. She spent 15 years of meritorious service at NTA, the Nigerian Television Authority, where she stood out excellently for her ability to use journalism to bring hope to millions of Nigerians, but more especially recently as chair of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, Honorable Abike Dabiri has been stalwart promoting the interests of Nigerians living overseas and continues to help to support the diaspora segment in realizing their political, economic, social, and cultural goals with regards to their home countries. It gives me absolute great pleasure to welcome Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa to give her keynote introductory speech. Thank you very much, ma'am. You're welcome. Still, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you very much and good afternoon, moderator. Good afternoon to the organizers of this program, Mixed Africa, and participants. A very good afternoon to you all. First, I want to thank you for putting this together. We're talking about investment opportunities here in Nigeria, and I'm been told to focus particularly on opportunities for the Nigerian diaspora at this Mixed Africa webinar. And I think it's a very, very important topic. And I thank the Mixed team for deeming it fit to have this particular topic on investment opportunities for the Nigerian diaspora. So let's start with, defining the diaspora. It's something we talk about all the time. The Nigerian diaspora ideally is defined as somebody who is a resident abroad, but you indeed do have a location, an address, and usually basically legitimate resident in other countries. Of course, we have the downside, but a diaspora is actually defined as somebody who is resident in another country, is paying tax, has an address, and is basically a legitimate resident. But we're looking at, we're dealing with, we say we have over 17 million Nigerians in the diaspora. 17 million Nigerians in the diaspora. That is the estimate. Now, we do not have an accurate data. So one of the things the Diaspora Commission is dealing with is we've set up a data portal for Nigerians abroad. So hopefully we can get a closer numbers of our diaspora abroad. Now, when I say 17 million, I'm not even talking of those in Africa. In Sudan alone, we're looking at about 5 million. And I tell you, Nigerians in Sudan, the richest guy in Sudan is a Nigerian. And we could go on and on. So we need an accurate data. There may be more, there may be less, but we're looking at about 17 million Nigerians in all parts of the world. And guess what about Nigerians abroad? Described as the most educated immigrants anywhere in the world. Even President Obama said that himself, and a whole lot of people agree with that. There's nowhere Nigerians are not excelling. And everywhere I go, I'm so proud to be a Nigerian. But the thing is, so if we are the best in the world, what are we doing? How are we impacting our own country? Fine, we go abroad for various reasons, but how does it impact on our country, Nigeria? India, Pakistan, Israel cannot talk about their growth today without the diaspora. So now with the Diaspora Commission, we are saying that we stop paying lip service to the issue of diaspora contribution to national growth. Let's talk about remittances. Yes, we've heard the figures, $25 billion remittances from the diaspora, but guess what? That's just scratching the surface. We're not even talking of the unofficial ones. We're not even talking, it's just scratching the surface. So if we indeed tap into fully into the diaspora, I'm sure they can even remit much more than that. But beyond remittances, investment opportunities, which is what we're talking about today. Remittances going to your families. There, you're sending money home. My brother has to go to school. You're paying bills. You're doing all of that. So it does help the economy. And as we have said severally, it's even much more than any foreign direct investment put together, or even more than the revenue of some states. It's about almost 6% of our GDP. So it's huge. But we're even saying that beyond that, Nigeria in the diaspora really is a major potential for opportunities, investment opportunities. We keep talking about foreign direct investment. We want to walk to a state where we're talking about diaspora direct investment. So what are we doing about that? When the Diaspora Commission came on board, we're just about 2.5 years old. We realized this and we said, well, there's so much more we can do in terms of getting the diaspora to contribute to national development. Now we have a few programs in place. First is we have a diaspora policy that will guide all diaspora engagements. And one of the programs we started was the Diaspora Investment Summit. So in partnership with the Nigerian Diaspora Summit Initiative, a private sector-led initiative, we've been able to have at least, I think 3 Diaspora Investment Summits. We hold them November every year. So you're all going to participate this year in November, and it's simply been very, very successful. And what we do is gather the diaspora together. Now we do it virtually and physically, both physically here and also by Zoom. We get diaspora together to look at investment opportunities. And I tell you with pride that Nigerians in the diaspora have been investing basically in the healthcare sector. As I speak with you here in Abuja, I can count 5 Nigerian diaspora doctors or groups that have come back to relocate back home. The Ruth Marcel Cancer Center in Lagos was set up by a Nigerian in the diaspora and a husband, Dr. Elebute and a husband. That is one of the best hospitals in the world today. People now come to Nigeria for cancer treatment. They were abroad for over 24 years and they said, no matter what, we're going home. And they did come. So there are many of them like that. So we're having Nigerians in the diaspora invest in the healthcare sector, in the agri sector, ICT, a bit of education, and the food business. And agriculture. Those are the areas we've been seeing a lot of them coming to invest in their country. So the idea is, and then we have the Saudi Arabia Nigeria Investment Summit, the first of its kind. We'll be having the second. For the first time, we had over 50 investors coming from Saudi. With Nigeria, a lot of them have Nigerian parentage. They have never been to Nigeria, but they did come to see what they could do. And we're having a second. As I speak with you in Saudi today, there's one going on where Nigeria is participating. So we have that for the first time. And guess what? They're now coming up with wanting to even start manufacturing all those things that we go to buy in Saudi here in Nigeria that we need. So a lot could happen if we're intentional about investment opportunities for the diaspora. And we continue to do that. So we partner with the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, and all that in where we have the investment summit. So like I said, I hope that you will be part of this subsequently. Now, for the first time, we had the Diaspora Housing Fair. That was November last year. And honestly speaking, Nigerians in diaspora have not allowed us to rest. We want our homes. We want to invest in the housing industry. We want to buy our homes. One of the major issues we had was the fact that a lot of times you want to buy your home in Nigeria, give an uncle or somebody, and the next thing, the money disappears. In fact, there are cases where the next thing, that uncle or brother just realized that he has married 3, 4 wives with your money. So how do we get them to be able to get their houses directly? And I think this should interest you here. A lot of them want to do that. So we're partnering with some of you to ensure that it's possible for them to get their own homes directly without going through third parties or without being duped. Here in Abuja, there was a time the FCT minister gave land to some diaspora groups, and I speak with you, the money disappeared. So how can we help in that regard? So we hope to do more in that regard. And then with the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, we're having the diaspora mortgage policy, where the Nigerian abroad has access to about 50 million naira mortgage. You open an account with them, and then you can even own your own home with a mortgage. And then also, rather than just be sending money anyhow, you can actually get a mortgage and get homes for your relatives, rather than spending money without knowing where it's going to. So we are focusing a lot on that. And then when we talk about investment in the medical sector here in the medical sector here in Abuja, FCT, Imo, Lagos State, we have specific examples. In Imo, we have a doctor who has, I'm telling you, one of the best centers for stroke anywhere in the world. But we don't even seem to appreciate and know that if you have a stroke today or anything to do with nerves, that's the blessed place to be. It's in Imo State. And people are coming from Germany, from South Africa, to those places. So when we have this pool of doctors coming to invest in Nigeria, I believe that that will change the face of medical tourism in Nigeria. And Lagos State government is having a medical park, and the diaspora doctors will be a major part of that park. Like I said, in the agri sector, we have them investing in rice farms, fisheries, there's bio cassava bags. We had one of our diaspora who decided to be exporting cocoa from somewhere in Oyo State, is now the biggest exporter of cocoa to Rwanda. So there's so much in that. Pounds Foundation, red oil, and then we've had them invest in waste management, organic, user-friendly, compostable bags and all that. So I can go on and on. There's a Nigerian in the diaspora who has put in a 100 million naira food factory in Niger State. There's another investing in shoe manufacturing business in Nigeria in fashion. There's a Nigerian in Vietnam, who was in Nigeria recently with a trade delegation from Vietnam. Again, Russia, we had a group come with about 7 major investors from Russia to see what they can do in Nigeria. And like I said, education is big. We have them going into book publishing and all that. So NDIS is doing a lot in that regard. I'll come to the challenges. There's definitely challenges in terms of Nigerian diaspora investing in the country. I'll come to that, and we have to also talk about that here. So another thing we're doing in terms of investments is how can we have a diaspora investment trust fund? The president just gave his backing to it not too long ago, so we're working on the structure for it. And here's the thing. Imagine $1 million or 1,000 or $1 million diaspora putting $1,000 together. I mean, that's how much? $1 billion. So if you can get the diaspora to put their funds in their money in a trust fund, where you can decide what you want to invest in, and what our aim is, the diaspora will control that fund. They will run it. Government is not going to run it, but government will be the supervisory body. But it's going to be for the diaspora to run. So we've set a team together, made up of the diaspora themselves, and they've sent a fantastic report, and we work on implementing that. So the idea is to have an investment trust fund for the diaspora where they can invest in and decide. They could decide, for instance, that they want to put money in infrastructure, whatever they want to do, it will be their decision. Don't forget that we had a $300 million diaspora bond not too long ago. I mean, it's going to mature in June. 3 years ago, it was oversubscribed. So there's so much more that we can do with the diaspora. So when this fund comes into place, I'm sure it's something that the diaspora will be very excited about. Well, I've told you about the diaspora housing fair. We're planning the next one, maybe like in April. I think as early as April, because a whole lot of them just want us to talk more about housing and what they can do in that regard. So again, I hope you all be part of it. Mixta was part of the last one, and I hope you'll be part of it too. Now, it's easy for us to say, diaspora, come and invest, come and invest. There are challenges. There's no doubt about that. Now, what are the challenges? Number one is everybody wants a secured environment. Everybody wants a secured investment. There's no point putting your investment in and by tomorrow, something happens. So we work with the office of the economic office, the office of the vice president, ease of doing business, to make sure that, we can help out in all this. Now, here's where we come in. So if you're a Nigerian in the diaspora wanting to invest, we serve as a spring, a platform to make it easier for you. So you're being frustrated, bureaucracy in some place or the other, we step in and see what we can do in that regard. We've achieved some measure of success. Sometimes we don't succeed. Let me confess that. But a whole lot of times we've been able to, sort those little differences. Sometimes it's about communication. Sometimes it's about, okay, this is the person to talk to. Sometimes they'll just give the right guidance. And in that regard, we're having diaspora desk. We have an AFCC, in case anybody wants to dupe you. We're going to have the Ministry of Trade and Investment. Like I said, we're working a lot with the NIPC, and we already have in the Ministry of Health, the diaspora desk. And then what we have done again is that we have focal offices in every state of the Federation, except Rivers and this Sokoto now. So because we need to decentralize. So somebody comes to me, listen, I want to invest in mineral resources in Ondo State. I just take you to the Ondo focal person who handles it directly. So you don't need to sit in Abuja going up and down saying, who do I talk to? Where do I go to? So that's the thing. The diaspora now has somebody that you can talk to. So we have focal persons in 34 states of the Federation, and that has made our job easier because you come to me, you want to invest, I tell you who to talk to. And Kano State government, for instance, has given free land. Whether you are from Kano or not, you want to invest in Kano State, there's a free land for you. And they're doing something with the port, I think in 2-3 months time, where it's going to be huge, and we're targeting the diaspora. And of course, Lagos State too has a lot of opportunities for the diaspora. And even beyond the Nigerian diaspora, the historic African diaspora, those that were taken away as slaves years ago, guess what? They really want to invest in Nigeria. And while Nigerians are criticizing their own country, these people are coming and saying, listen, we want to come home. I just received a gentleman yesterday, is leaving tomorrow, and is here for investment opportunities. He's a Jamaican American. And one of the things we're doing for them is we started a program called the Door of Return. When you hear about the year return in Ghana, we started it in Nigeria, though on a small scale. And here's the thing, we take them to Badagry, they walk through that historic, and I'm sure a lot of you here in Nigeria haven't taken that journey, the historic journey to the Atlantic, where they're thrown away and taken away as slaves. They walk through that path, they see the history is a very emotional thing. Then they come back and we see them like kings and queens and have a massive celebration. So it's both a physical, emotional, spiritual, and economic connection to the motherland. A lot of them that have come are now saying what they can do. And it doesn't have to be huge. I'll give you an example. Some of them got together $10,000 and they give fishermen in these communities. So a fisherman gets $10,000, he does his business with it, he makes his money, he returns it, another fisherman gets. So it doesn't have to be tons of, thousands and thousands of dollars. Little drops of water make the mighty ocean. So in terms of opportunities for the diaspora, there's a lot we can do. Like I said, the challenges are there. So I've talked about bureaucracy, I've talked about security, but I'll tell you one thing. If we sit as Nigerians abroad and say, our country is not secure, and we badmouth our own country, we're actually doing ourselves in. There's a lady who came here to Nigeria. She said she wanted to celebrate her birthday. She was 70 years old. She's a Black American. She said she wanted to do her birthday in Nigeria. And guess what? Nigerians were telling her, don't go. But she said, I'm going. And she came and she had the best celebration that she ever had. So we have cases where it is Nigerians themselves that tell others, don't do this. But here's what it is. We cannot talk down on our country. Nobody will develop Nigeria but ourselves. So whether you're a Nigerian at home or Nigerian in the diaspora, we don't have a perfect country, but we have to work out perfection. What makes, what's the Nigerian factor? There should be anything like Nigerian factor. We are Nigerians. We are the best in the world. When I talk about medicine, Dr. Lutoye, for instance, is a doctor, a Nigerian doctor in America, who made history by giving birth to the same baby twice. He removed the fetus from the mother, operated on it, put it back in the mother, and then she gave birth when it was time. He's a Nigerian doctor. And there are so many of them like that. Entertainment, sports, medicine, education, arts. There's nowhere we're not excelling. So it's important that we let this cascade into our own country. And that is why now you have a diaspora commission, we're a one-stop agency to deal with diaspora matters. And I tell them we're your embassy here in Nigeria. So as we do these things that ensure that we promote investment for the diaspora, I think it's going to be a win-win for every one of us. So as we talk about the staying rooted as a Nigerian in the diaspora, investment opportunities for the Nigerian diaspora, and I like the word staying rooted. No matter how far you go, as the Yoruba say, no matter how far a river flows, you cannot cut off from your source. So no matter how far you go, this is home. So what kind of home do you want to come to? What kind of home do you want to invest in? There's a doctor in Canada. After he retired in his 85, a community was named after him in Canada. After he retired, he came back home and he said, you know what? I wish I had done this years ago. He's going around now, giving free Medicare, just giving back his service. So investment does not have to even be about money. It's also giving your time. Capacity building, training the younger ones. This guy goes around now, he's so happy. He gives his time to hospitals, anywhere he's invited. We have medical missions coming in from time to time. So really, we need to stay rooted. This is home. Another challenge is this. Nigerians abroad will tell you, and this happens all the time. They come here and we resist them. There's a particular person who came to a hospital here to give back free equipment. Guess what? He was turned back. And you know what he did? He took it to Ghana, a Nigerian. The person said to him, "You want to take my job?" And then he resisted and sent him away. But there was no diaspora commission then. If there was a diaspora commission, that would not happen. So we need to work together as brothers and sisters. Whether you are home, whether you are abroad, you are a Nigerian in the diaspora. So, and that is our message. Be good ambassadors wherever you are. Do not forget home. Let's partner to build this country of ours. So we can't be the best in the world and not do something at home. So as we have this conversation, I hope that we can do more to ensure that this is home. Stay rooted and look at the opportunity here in your country. And we can do it. We are doing it, and we need to do a lot more. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I hope that after this conversation, we can have a lot more in terms of investments and partnerships and collaborations to ensure that we all work together for the growth and development of our dear country, Nigeria. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Abike Dabiri. Thank you so much, Matt. I mean, you said so much. Your opening keynote was quite packed. We heard about many of the practical things a lot of the agencies and commissions are doing, the summit. The fund sounds interesting. I did the relation. 1 million Nigerians donated $1,000 to a fund. That's 1 billion. So
it's not a donation. It's an
investment. Yes. Invested, of course. Invested $1 billion. And there's so much opportunity. And I was beaming from ear to ear when you were talking about the accomplishments of Nigerians in the diaspora. We have to move on to the panel. But before I let you go, I would like to ask one question. I hope you're able to ask briefly. Given a lot of the fantastic work NITCOM, the Diaspora Summit, and you know the government agencies are doing to learn and attract investment from Nigerians in the diaspora, are you working on any strategies? And it may sound counterintuitive about the tide of young Nigerians seeking more fruitful economic opportunities overseas, and so how does that complement the work you're doing with the diaspora who are already overseas, who are trying to come back home? Because that is a big trend that we're seeing now.
Sorry, I lost you a bit.
Whether your commission is also working on how to engage with the tide of young Nigerians who are also seeking economic opportunities overseas from Nigeria to places like Canada and the US, and how that comments or interface with the work you are doing with the diaspora?
Yeah, actually, if I had a choice, we won't be relocating to Canada or America. Rather, they will be coming to Nigeria, not the other way around. But you know, you can't stop migration. But what we do is this: we have a program called the Home Strings Program, but it's more about attracting the younger generation of Nigerians abroad to see what they can do back home. We have third generation Nigerians, and I'm telling you, that's the most exciting part. We have third generation Nigerians that have never been to Nigeria and are eager to come. So we have a special program for them, and we are succeeding. So that is one, that's about coming. For those going, all we do with them is, number one, know where you're going to, know what you're doing, be sure you're going legally, and be sure that you're going to get the jobs you're going for. So if they do come to us, we'll give that guidance. But we're putting together what we call the Diaspora Bible. We're working with the Nigerian Diaspora Organization in Europe to put together a Diaspora Bible to guide you. And here's the thing, you talk about those going to Canada, America. A lot of times, the idea is if you go and life is better for you, we are happier for that. But if you go and it gets worse, then it's a problem. So don't go. Some people are living in search of employment and they still get their jobs. You know, so that is, we can guide you, but we are not the ones that will, but we have a program now called Match. It's a program with the International Organization for Migration. Okay, so maybe Brussels, Netherlands needs these jobs. They tell us, we tell you. So very soon you're going to see a whole lot of that, right? So that you go to places where you can get a job, not just going to nothingness. So there's a program called Match, where we match you with the kind of availability there. And I think in that regard, we can say we're playing that role in that regard, where you can actually get the jobs that are available, not just go into nothingness.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Abike Dabiri. It's been very fascinating listening to all these fantastic initiatives. And I'm sure you'll help me in joining. You're welcome to stay with us for the rest of the segment, madam, if you can. And if not, we're very grateful for your time And as an institution, we look forward to engaging with you on many of these initiatives. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'll stay a few more minutes and I'll leave later. I'll listen in a bit to learn a few things. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move now to some practical aspects around investing. Earlier, we heard from Tayo of North. And I'm going to now go to look at some of the regulatory and legal issues around investing. I encourage you to please put your questions in the Q&A. And this question is going to go to Tosin Ajose. I would also ask that the panelists keep their responses to 3 minutes so that we can get as many rounds of questioning going with the panel. I wanted to ask a question that's on top of the minds of a lot of people around transferring funds to the Nigerian market. What are some of the mechanisms currently available and the trends you're seeing? And how would you advise a newbie diaspora investor, particularly in an area like real estate, to look at funds transfer with regards to Nigeria? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rolake. I think that there are basically two channels that people typically deploy. We have the informal channels that a lot of people are very, accustomed to. Again, because Nigeria is a country where a lot of people closely commune with family and friends. You'll find that there are many times that people still carry cash across the border because they are going to come into Nigeria and they're looking to use some of their diaspora remittances to meet needs of family and friends. As a matter of fact, there is data that shows that 70% of diaspora remittances or thereabouts actually comes in not as investment, but primarily to meet the needs of family and friends. So a lot of this actually comes in through informal channels. Someone is coming home and you just tell them, can you please take this $3,000 and distribute it amongst my friends, my cousins, my mother and father, and all of that. And then you also have the official channels. So over the last couple of years, CBN has set up, a lot of drive towards ensuring that people actually bring in, these diaspora remittances through authorized channels. And there has been a significant growth in the number of international money transfer operators that we have. A lot of us were accustomed to Western Union, MoneyGram, and the rest of them when we were much younger. There were just about 3 or 4 of them at the time. We have a large number of these people now, about 50 or more growing, that actually allow for people to be able to transfer funds across authorized channels into the country. So we have the international money transfer operators, and then we also have the channels where monies can come in through the banks, right? So you have, your foreign account, and then you're doing a transaction via another bank, another local bank in Nigeria, and you are moving, foreign exchange across. Again, depending on what you are using the money for, many times people are using it for retail or other informal needs where they are not really thinking to repatriate, their returns on investment or what have you. If that is the case, then many times a lot of people are not very concerned about, the channels where these monies, come through, because there are official rules around how you are able to repatriate funds when you have made investments in Nigeria, which is why it's essential that you are able to track these monies that come in. And when Honorable Kedagri was speaking, I think she alluded to the fact that a lot of the times we don't even capture, a significant portion of diaspora remittances that come into Nigeria because they come in through unauthorized channels, right? So many times you cannot really say. So we have a figure that is being bandied around that about $65 billion came into Nigeria from Nigerian immigrant community in the last 3 years. That number is probably ×3 of that in actual fact, because a lot of people bring in funds through unofficial channels, majorly because they are bringing them in for domestic purposes, not for investment, without any intention of, repatriating, the funds or the revenue. But if you wanted to bring in funds into Nigeria for investment purposes, you will be concerned about repatriating your returns at the end of the day. And therefore, you then need to use the available authorized channels, which will be transfer from international banks to local banks, and use of the IMTO channels to bring the monies in. And yes, so one other thing we have to understand, beyond bringing the money, you also have to ensure that you have a certificate of capital importation that shows that you have brought in money, because that is what will allow you access foreign exchange to carry your money out when you want to either, liquidate the investment, or you want to take out your returns.
Thank you, Tosin, and we'll get more into that as well when we speak with CBN. I actually now want to move to Dr. Nnaji, the Director of Trade and Exchange at CBN. Thank you for joining us. And what I really wanted to know is, I guess the operative word that Tosin was mentioning was authorized channels. And I think that's important, something that's often taken for granted. Just to check that you're there, Dr. Nnaji.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Are you able to turn on your camera? Okay, there you are. Yes, yes. So what I wanted to hear from you are some of the specific emerging policies around this area. Just briefly, at a very high level, break some of them down for us so that people understand what some of these authorized and formal mechanisms are a bit more in terms of fund transfer, and perhaps any specific dynamics with regards to foreign exchange transactions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting the Central Bank to this forum. As you know, in the past few years, Central Bank has put in some energy into diaspora remittances, because as the recession of 2016 set in, and the reduction in foreign exchange inflow because of low prices of oil, we're looking for other ways to augment foreign exchange needs of the country, and diaspora remittances was one of the more stable and sustainable way to do that. So we implemented a lot of policy to drive that inflows. We also looked into what are the main countries that Nigerians in diaspora or migrants are. What are these migrants doing? And where can we focus our energy in bringing remittances in? So we noted that US is one of the #1 country where you have most Nigerians in diaspora, followed by the United Kingdom, followed by Cameroon. You might be surprised that Cameroon is one of the countries that has many Nigerians. And then Niger, as Honorable Dabari said, that the richest man in Niger is a Nigerian. You have Ghana, you have Italy, Benin Republic, Cote d'Ivoire, Spain, Togo, Canada, South Africa, Germany, and so on and so forth. So we focus our energy in licensing formal IMTOs, or money transfer organizations, that are based in these 10 countries that we have. I have enumerated none, and right now we have over 30 IMTOs. I know when Tosin was speaking, she said the central bank has focused on bringing in more money transfer organizations to be doing formal business in Nigeria. Yes, she also mentioned that you also have informal flows coming in. That has been an old age practice and is not going to end. What we're trying to do is to bring more of those informal ones into the formal channel so that it can be counted and rightly channeled. We also implemented a program, Naira for Dollar. And Naira for Dollar is that for every remittance dollar that comes into this country, you get $5 Naira for every $1 that is inflowed through remittance, formal inflows. And that is ongoing and continue to generate a lot of inflows. Before we implemented this policy, our formal inflows were about $40 million per week. Now we're in the neighborhood of $100 million per week on the formal flows. We also implemented a policy that if you get remittance into this country, the banks will pay you in US dollars, not in Naira, because we don't want them to shortchange you in exchange rate differential. Maybe they say they will pay you in a bank rate or whatever rate they decide. But if you get your dollar, you can do whatever you chooses to do with it, exchange it at whatever rate you have negotiated with the person that wants to take the dollar from you. That way we get value for both the sender and the receiver of the money. So that senders know that their hard-earned dollar is being used or utilized in a way that they have intended it to use. We're also working with other countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan to see what drives their remittance flows. We note that even during the pandemics, remittance flow to Pakistan was very high. And this because they have a coordinated diaspora scheme or framework for the country. If you're going to, from a Pakistani and you're going to work in the UK, the government help you transition to UK, they open an account for you, that your income can be going to that account or part of your income can be going to that account in Pakistan. And that's why their remittance inflow is very high. We're working with them and seeing what we can learn from it and how we can implement that in Nigeria. So that's on a policy level. That's what we're doing in the central bank. And we're seeing some of the benefits of the program we have implemented. Thank you very much. I'm here to answer any question if anybody has any.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naji. That was really interesting. And thank you for talking about some of the new initiatives that are emerging. I want to talk a bit now about real estate. So I'm going to come to both Mr. Bobade, who's actually standing in for Mrs. Adetaya Adeyi of ARM Investment Managers. And there's a lot of talk around real estate investing, and real estate is obviously seen as a store of value. So Mr. Olalua Bobade, I wanted to ask you your thoughts on how real estate compares to other asset classes with regards to investment returns today and going forward into future. Can you, at a very high level, briefly just talk to us about what the opportunities are and what some of those returns might look like? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolake, and well done to the Mixta team for putting this together. So at a high level, I think, as you said, real estate is a store of value. And thinking about where we are at the moment, earlier on we talked about Russia invading Ukraine, and we've also talked about inflation trends at the moment, globally. We're seeing advanced markets, inflation at 7+%. In a situation like that, when you compare the returns you have on, say, US Treasuries, for instance, where you're seeing returns of between 1% and 2%, even for 10-year bonds. But you come back to Nigeria and you look at some, real estate investments where you're able to make as high as, 10% or even a much higher. That's just on rental income, for instance. And then you add to that the capital gain on your property or on that asset that you have. You're talking about an investment that will be able to earn you returns far above, inflation, and able to protect the value of your funds. If we also look at other asset classes, so there are other asset classes that might as well be beneficial. So if you talk about the equity asset class, for instance, but the challenge with some of these other asset classes is risk at the end of the day. For real estate, it's a bit more stable. And depending on the appetite of the investor, that might be a very suitable investment for you over the long term. And if you are an investor, you're looking at an investment that you can put your money in over the long term, it's safe, it will preserve the value of your capital, and you will also, generate additional wealth, whether through income or through gains. I think real estate is a very good opportunity. However, you might consider other asset classes, but then you need to step back and think about the risk. Are you finding with volatility of the equities market, for instance, or the bond market, for instance? If you're not, then real estate is a good pick for you.
Thank you. What about other types of newer asset classes, such as cryptocurrency, non-fungible tokens? Is there a view of traditional financial institutions about these types of asset classes compared to assets such as real estate?
So again, taking a step back, right? And it's easy to look back and say, okay, if I'd invested at this point, I would have made, this number of multiples by investing in crypto or investing in NFTs. But at the end of the day, you need to step back and think about the underlying nature of these investments, right? Are there, for example, cryptocurrency or NFTs? Are they economic? Do they provide economic value? That's a very important question, right? Not raining on the parade of cryptos and NFTs, and they are also important for speculative purposes, and that's a very important point to make. There's a difference between investing and speculating. And so if you feel like, okay, I have this money, I want to speculate. Now I may make many multiples, but I might also lose many multiples at the same time. So it's fine to try that, and that's always the advice. And if you even speak to those who are either crypto traders or NFT or invest in NFTs, the advice is don't invest what you can't lose. But if you're investing in real estate, for instance, you're thinking about an investment, a long-term investment that is able to protect your wealth. And I think that's a very important distinction to make and keep in mind. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Olaoluwa Bobade. Very interesting submissions there. So now let's look a bit deeper into the real estate, the mortgage market, the trends there in terms of investing in property. And I want to ask this question to Mr. Shina Asilola of Sterling Bank. Now, as you know, the mortgage market here is still in its nascent stages, still in infancy. And it's not always clear what the options and opportunities are. First of all, for diasporans who want to invest in the Nigerian market, particularly because overseas markets, the mortgage market there is very established. So there's an expectation that I will find the means to pay for the value for a period of time. Can you tell us some of the emerging initiatives or products, perhaps some that Sterling Bank may be putting out there that are available for diasporan investors?
Okay, thank you very much for putting this together, and thank you for the opportunity. I will attempt to answer your question, but a little bit of digression will permit me. Now, there is an high population of the informal, let me put it, diaspora, that have capacity that we have been unable to tap into. The CBN representative spoke to this particular set of people. Abike also spoke to this particular set of people, and there's a whole lot in terms of value that they have and that we have not harnessed. And my suggestion or recommendation would be a two-pronged approach. The first one, most of them, their inability to bring money back home to invest in Nigeria is because, one, they don't even have kind of identity in Nigeria. Their means of identification has expired. They don't have BVN and all of those things. How do we bring them back into the financial sector in Nigeria such that we can amass or get together what they have to invest back in the country, rather than moving this money to family and friends where integrity is questioned, where their money is diverted or used to marry another wife, like Abike said. So we have to look at them appropriately. Secondly, also we have to leverage on digital. Digitalization is around the globe today, and our ability to use digitalization to bring them on board is critical. And I'll give a very good example, and that will link me to the question that you asked, Rolake, and which speaks to the different products, in terms of real estate products that we have today that diasporas can embrace. And I said to you quickly, we are working on a particular digital platform that allows a diaspora to be able to do finishing touch to a real estate property here in Nigeria. The look and feel, the final touches. It makes them feel real, this is real to us, and they can buy into it. Secondly, also, we create a product that allows them give a little contribution to whatsoever the total amount for that mortgage is, and they can spread their payment over a year period. In some instances, at the beginning of the building of the estate itself, they can invest and get an higher return without even waiting. By the time the property is ready, they don't need to look for buyers. They are already buyers, they invested, and at the point of selling, they get the returns on their investment and they turn this around. Also, with what is very popular among you real estate experts, whereby they can co-own a particular portion of a property. It can be commercial property, it can be office property, it can be hotel and all of those things, like it's popular in Dubai and they do right now in Nigeria. We've seen several of them subscribe to this because they can spread the risk that is at stake there. Because also the issue of integrity, the issue of trust is a major issue for Nigerians in diaspora. But it's with institutions like yours, like mine, and most of us, the panelists here, we've been able to convince them about trust. Now they trust, they know the name, they can trust the name, they can really invest in the kind of properties that we are developing these days. But more importantly, what I think we need to do more is the fact that we need to create an awareness, a very, very rich awareness beyond what they see on social media, beyond what they see in newspaper, ability for us to have presence in those countries in which you have a lot of Nigerians in diaspora is critical. When you have presence, you have road shows, you create like an relationship manager between them and us here in Nigeria. We go a long way in them investing. There is the will to invest, but the lack of trust is a major, major obstacle that we need to convince them about by providing information and let them know, let them be able to relate to us, and also leveraging on digitization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atilola. And, I should also mention that, of course, Mixed Africa is always looking to collaborate with institutions like yours in terms of trying to offer the solutions to the diaspora segment. I was very interested to hear about this finishing touch product. That's a new one. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in finding out how they can onboard to that. Okay, Tayo, I'm going to come back to you and then Tosin. So Tayo, here it, imagine I'm young, maybe young professional in the diaspora. I want to maintain roots back home. I follow a lot of news on Nigeria. I watch Nollywood. I see our movies on Netflix. I hear names like Banana Island, the Ikoyi suburbs. Then I hear about Ikate and this thriving new urban community in Guefon. And people are saying, no, but the returns on the mainland are much better. Old GRA, actually. In my head, I'm confused. First of all, I live abroad. So I can't really get a sense of where the real opportunities are and how to dimension a metropolis like Lagos in terms of whether it's an apartment that makes sense from an investment perspective, or whether investing in a small retail outlet is actually what makes sense, a small mall in Ikate. How do I go about thinking through it from a market perspective? Can you help me make sense of this from a market perspective?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rolake, you understand these dilemmas so well, as though you've gone through it yourself. I mean, first thing, like I was mentioning earlier, was to obviously make that decision, that cogent decision that you want to diversify. You potentially or have an apartment, maybe wherever you are in the diaspora, and then you want to also get something, in your home country, right? And for diversification benefits, you might look at, say, you're living in Houston and you count your returns in dollars, and you think that there are potentially currency risks with investing in Nigeria. And there are, and we're not going to deny that. But what I always tell people is that real estate by nature is finite, and there is something about taking position, right? If we keep counting strictly returns, right, opportunities will finish and you would never be able to take those positions. And you and I understand that real estate is not only about the returns, it's the ability to be able to use it for yourself, to use it, to demonstrate presence in a country, to use it, to onward create, other liquidity by way of, leveraging it to access capital. So there are several reasons outside of returns that, one should be looking to invest in your home country. You want to show those ties, and there is nothing more. I mean, those of us that have gone to try and get a visa know that there is nothing more that demonstrates ties in a country than when you own an asset, real property in that country. So that is one more reason why you want to invest in your home country. Again, home country investments are always very advisable, as against saying, I'm Black, I might as well go and invest in Ghana or Senegal. I heard those countries are popping. Why home country investment is also advisable is that you have relatives, you have ties that potentially can help check on those investments. You understand some idiosyncrasies that someone that's just not Nigerian would never understand. So that's just one more reason to invest. But how to wrap your head around what you should be investing in exactly and where you should be investing in. Again, it's important to understand that there is a value chain of residential, commercial, industrial, and specialized real estate classes. So under the commercial, you have retail, and you have offices, and obviously industrial, you have warehouses, factories, data centers, and in the specialized, that's where you have, things like maybe healthcare, and, might just throw in NFTs and all of that into those specialized. The reality is that as a new investor, you might not be able to get into those specialized or hospitality offerings. One, the entry barriers might be higher. They are a little more complex. You might not be able to understand all the transaction dynamics. So it's always easier to get into purchasing land, residential, and then maybe commercial. So that will always be, the best places to invest in. Your investment managers will always tell you it's best to start investing in what you understand, at least something you can wrap your head around. And most people can wrap their head around land, residential, and maybe commercial. So we've knocked that out of the way. In terms of locations can be a little tricky, and maybe you're looking at Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, or even Lagos, you're thinking island, mainland, where should I be investing? The reality is that there are opportunities everywhere. All right, there are opportunities everywhere, even in locations that look like there are no opportunities. A good opportunity might be thrown at just you, right? So it's important to kind of analyze the opportunity. And when I say analyze it, you're checking for the financial metrics, right? What is the growth? What is the growth rate in that location? How well have property in that location done in the last 2 to 3 years, for example? You're looking at the legal dynamics. Is the property well titled? Are there any legal ramifications you should be aware of that can jeopardize your investments? Is the use class and the zoning what you are potentially investing in? If you're buying a lot of land and you think it's very cheap, you want to check, is it actually agric land? And you think you can be able to build an estate there in future. It's actually agric land. That's why it's so cheap. So you need to check those legal dynamics, and of course you need to understand the parties. So those are the three point things I tell people to check: the financial, the legal, and then the dynamics, the people dynamics. Who's selling? Who's trading? Who's the party? Is it an entity that can be that you can sue and can be sued? Is it someone that is reputable? So those are some dynamics that you want to check if you're trying to do an investment from the diaspora. But over and above everything, I find that it's real estate investments that people typically do without having an advisor. And I don't know why that's the case, because real estate investments are actually, they tend to be bigger than when you're buying stocks or T-bills. And you never buy those things without getting an advisor. All right. I know we typically charge a fee for advisory work, but again, we de-risk the investment decision that you're trying to make significantly. Using an advisor that is homegrown, understands the dynamics, can be the difference between getting a significant capital appreciation on your investment or losing your entire capital. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Taya. And you make some really good points about, people don't think about getting an advisor, but I guess that is part of transaction costs. that you should factor in when actually looking to invest. And I really love what you can it be sued or can it sue? And I think speaking about the category of people who can sue or can be sued, Tosin, the lawyer on the call, I want to come to you because, you know, some of the local cultural nuances around buying land or buying apartments or buildings, but more particularly land, you know, this Omonile phenomenon in our society, which for a Nigerian who has lived pretty much all their life, they may not be familiar with these subtle dynamics, things around ownership, both real ownership and perceived ownership. And I want you to please help us make sense of some of the legal issues, particularly the subtleties. Some of the obvious things may be quite well known, but some of the subtleties around legal title in the Nigerian environment and how that may differ to what pertains abroad, especially the risks of not looking well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rolake. This is a very important question you talked on, because even for some of us who've been in the market for so long, it takes a higher sense of caution for you to play in the real estate space, right? There is a principle in law that applies in the real estate market, which puts the onus of ensuring that you take precise and complete caution when doing transactions on the buyer or the investor, as it were, because when things don't go as planned, you're the one who's going to lose money. And for some of us that have worked in the industry for this long, sometimes we still make mistakes because of the opaqueness of our environment and our systems. So abroad, a lot of times there is access to data, there's access to information, and there is mandatory record keeping, especially in relation to ownership of assets, transfer of title, and what have you. Unfortunately, we have title repositories in Nigeria, but 70% or more of the titles over real estate in Nigeria is not documented. On top of that, even the ones that are documented, when there is a change or a transfer in title, or there's a registration of an encumbrance or a charge or whatever, a lot of times it is done informally without proper records at the registry. Apart from the fact that we have a lot of bureaucracy, even in the repositories and the registries, where it's not so easy to even get access to information. On top of that, sometimes the market is moving faster than the registries or the regulators. So many times, a piece of real estate may have changed hands 3 times, and you're looking at the records at the registry. What you have there is the record as at 10 years ago. So just by virtue of that, I would say, when you're dealing with investment, especially in an environment like this, the first thing is please get advisors. Please get competent advisors that can help you navigate the market. Then apart from that, there are a number of other subtle nuances that I have seen in my lifetime working in real estate. One of them is that there is a lot of DOD documents that are moving around in the market. And it takes an experienced eye to be able to tell that a particular document is a fake, it's not the original, or what have you. There are many times that we see situations like that. And sometimes you have owners that are dealing real estate sales and transfers with multiple parties at the same time. And someone is selling a piece of real estate to 4 people at the same time, and you don't know, you just get yourself into that situation, and you end up at the end of the day having an issue. Another thing I would speak about is the fact that the interest we have in Nigeria over real estate is not similar to what you have in a lot of jurisdictions where there is a freehold system, meaning that if you own a piece of real estate, you have an interest for life. In Nigeria, there is no such thing as a freehold interest. You don't own that interest for life. All land in Nigeria has been vested in the governors of the respective states where the lands are. So if you have a piece of real estate, you are holding it under a leasehold interest that has a terminal date. So sometimes when you're dealing real estate, you also have to be concerned about the remainder of the interest that is available for you when you acquire that piece of real estate. Certificates of occupancies do expire. any legal title over land that is granted in Nigeria has an expiration date. So you need to know how many years is left on this piece of real estate. Is it 10 years? Is it 15 years? Is it 5 years? You know, so that should influence your position or your sense on the valuation or the proper price to pay for that piece of real estate. I think another thing is understanding the title metrics that we have in Nigeria. A lot of people, you know, are able to blindside people and just, you know, sell them, you know, dummies. A lot of times somebody takes you to a piece of real estate and says that they are selling it. And if you do not verify the actual geolocation of that piece of real estate, you will buy something that is different from what the person owns. I've seen a situation where somebody buys a piece of real estate, has developed about 6 floors of residential housing with 2 units on each floor. And it turns out that the person who sold the land to them owned a piece of land that was 4 blocks away from the place where this person was, you know, was taken to. So they had built this piece of real estate, and the actual owner of the real estate is somebody in diaspora. And then, you know, trouble ensued, and it turned out that the development on that property was actually brought down because the person who bought had gone to take possession of property that did not actually belong to the owner, because there was no survey verification done to ensure that the geolocation of the particular land that the person was buying was verified, that the coordinates were mapped appropriately, and that it was properly identified. The person lost a lot of money. They lost all of their investment because the actual owner came on and was not going to have anything. So those are some of the things that I think that, you know, we need to be careful about.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Very, very useful, practical point, particularly those. It's important to definitely have an advisor and to ask questions. You know, I often find with some of these things that people sometimes are afraid to ask about the detail, but you know, when money is at stake, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's better to go in with your eyes open. Okay, so we have quite a lot of questions that have built up, and I'm going to throw some of the first set of questions coming from the Q&A to both Sterling Bank and CBN. I'll start with Nanji at CBN. I have a question here from an anonymous attendee who says, how easy or difficult is it to transfer funds out of the country? For instance, if a Nigerian would like to buy property in another country. Dr. Nanji, I don't know whether you would like to take that question and respond to that question. And then shortly after, there's a question here around Nigerians offering mortgages to the diaspora to buy specifically mixed up properties, but maybe that's a question we can jointly answer. Perhaps you can talk about it more in general terms. So Dr. Nanji, over to you first.
Well, if you have the proper documentation and you have your money in your bank and your bank can source the forex for you, yes, you can buy property abroad, and you actually have mortgage payment of $5,000 per month. You're eligible to, if you have the funds and if your bank have the forex to give to you.
Okay, thank you, Ma. You said $5,000 a month. Did you say? Okay, maybe we can get the detail later. I was just trying to ensure we could confirm the details for the audience. Okay, so to Mr. Atilola from Sterling Bank, there was a question here around the structure of mortgages available for buying a property back home. I think you already touched on that to some extent, but perhaps you could even broaden it into the links, you know, the available banking services around the entire ecosystem of taking on a mortgage. Maybe you could even talk about other types of available products on the market.
Okay, thank you. In terms of mortgage, and it's very easy to get mortgages from Sterling. What we normally do is we partner. we partner with organizations such as Mixer. What we do, because they are trusted and they have history of performance, of quality, of delivery. And also it saves you all the stress that one of the panelists mentioned, that's of legal arrangement and all of those things. So the bank is comfortable after doing an analysis of your, what's it called, your ability, your capacity to pay over a period of time. Immediately that is done, we evaluate to see the proper documentation. And that's why it's easier, it's faster by partnering with organizations that already have history of doing what is necessary. Really and truly, where we have issues is in terms of documentation, there's no encumbrances on this property, the real owner of the property, and all of that. When you get organizations that have done this, it's easier for us. So what we are only just going to test is your capacity. Do you have the capacity to repay? And also in terms of costing, because a lot of people ask, what is the interest rate? There are a lot of fundings that we have that make the interest rate very reasonable. We won't give you the interest rate that we are giving to somebody that is taking a loan to do a business. That is taking a loan for a year, for 2 years. Most time mortgages are 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, depending on your age, depending on your capacity to repay. So it's easier when you partner or you buy into real estate that have owners, developers that have history of performance. Is easier for us to partner with you. That is, for us, that is major, is a major condition that we look into. If you have that, you have organization like Mixer behind you, then we are good to go. You are like 80% qualified to work with us, for us to work with you to get a mortgage.
Thank you very much. And I should also mention that even developers like Mixer have flexible payment schemes that would be available under certain conditions to some customers. So you can also contact us, and my colleagues will put our email address on the chat box after, towards the end of this conversation. There's a question here that I would actually like perhaps Tayo to help answer live. It is around, and I can see, Tayo, that you're typing, but I think for the benefit of the audience, it'd be nice to talk a bit about this. It's around why we have only a few green spaces in real estate. And as we know, Lagos is quite a densely populated city, and you don't have a lot of green space. And this is something that we're finding a lot of consumers increasingly value, actually. Especially since COVID, when many people have to be stuck at home, at least at the height of the lockdown. Can you tell us a bit about this phenomenon, and perhaps I can add a bit more text to that after you've had a go? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate for green areas and just essentially ensuring that there's environmental balance, because it goes a long way in improving air quality and the health and well-being of people, and that's something that a lot of people don't think about. Air quality is very critical, and having green areas super enhances that. But the reality is that in practice, in city centers, globally, it's not very feasible to have a lot of green areas, right? It's just the reality, and that's the case world over. London, New York, Beijing, anywhere. All right, and that's because land is just so expensive. So in the first place, it's already been built up, anyways. So we just have to have those kind of realistic expectations. But as you move away from city centers, yes, green areas can be, and should be, more emphasized, because again, that's where people really live, and that's where they should spend most of their time. And so we should emphasize this, a lot more. And I believe that a lot of estates that are coming up these days are beginning to infuse that in their space. The only thing that annoys me sometimes when I see, a space designated as green, and then they put artificial grass there, that's always very upsetting. And, clearly someone doesn't understand the reason why, people are clamoring for the green in the first place, the ecological benefits and all. So if there's any developer that it's just trying to make everything look so tidy and dandy and putting in artificial grass. There are environmental benefits, and it creates ecological balance when you have green areas, that rodents and all those things can, they can go there. That's where they stay, while you stay in your houses very neatly and all of that. It creates ecological balance and helps promote air quality. So I think in gated communities, we will see, and we are currently seeing more green, areas. And while I'm on this point, just to throw out there, there's some study that we've been doing since last year, actually since 2020, and it's just kind of tracking the growth of gated communities, in Lagos in particular, and we find that, across board, gated communities are enjoying at least 25% growth in value, capital value, year on year. Now, just to put that in perspective, say if land in a gated community was 100,000 per square meter, or if a property was 100 million, it's year on year, it's increased to 125. And then it's increased to 150 million, in 2 years. That's what we're talking about. And that's the average, actually. In some gated communities, they've enjoyed up to 50%. So 100 million has become 150. It's been that stark, it's been that high. And some of the factors that have informed that is there is rising insecurity in the country. And Lagos, is kind of like a safe haven, some form of oasis. And what's safer than Lagos in general is living in a gated community in Lagos, right? And so there is pent-up demand for properties, land within gated communities, and people are just willing to pay a premium. And so prices are just increasing. Those of us that know what's happened in Banana Island in the last 18 months can attest to the fact that 50% capital appreciation is putting it mildly. Banana Island has enjoyed crazy, ridiculous capital appreciation, all right? And we're seeing that happen not just in Banana Island, we're seeing it happen across estates. And it still brings us back to the issue of, greens, having green areas. And it's just because the gated communities tend to be better planned, tend to be more livable, just in case there's another lockdown, you're able to walk around your estate, while those of us that don't live in gated communities are confined to the four walls of our homes. And that was the case, in 2020 when there was a lockdown. Some of us were locked in the four walls of our homes, while those that lived in gated communities had a little more laxity and could move around their communities. Just leave it at that.
Thanks, Ty. Very interesting. And I would also add, obviously not just doing a direct plug for Mixter, but Lagos New Town is one of those emerging towns that has really placed a huge premium on green environment. And in fact, for a diaspora investor, I think a value proposition is sustainability, that you should be looking to invest in developers who are prioritizing sustainability, and more specifically, those developers who are working towards EDGE certification, which is a global standard around sustainability in building design. And I think the point about green is also related to climate, because the more trees we have, the healthier the environment. And of course, we know deforestation is a huge contributor to carbon emissions, and that thing that is increasing of importance globally to investors, both retail and institutional. So green is a top priority for us at Mixter, and Lagos New Town, both in terms of infrastructure development, the built environment, the green environment, and sustainability is really a key hallmark of that particular development. Okay, so there's a question here around whether Mixter developments come with building warranty insurance that protects the buyer from structural damage to the property. And I'm going to ask our admin team to please upgrade Mrs. Shade Hughes, the country manager for Mixter Nigeria, because she will be answering this question. And while she's answering it, I would kindly ask Sterling Bank to talk about loan rates with regards to mortgages. And then for Mr., I think he's still on the call, Bobade, if you could please talk about how to fireproof your investments as a direct investor. So we'll take it in that order. I'll go to Mrs. right now on the insurance and building warranty question. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that I can be heard.
Yes, you can.
Okay, hi. Thanks, Rolake, and thank you to all our panelists, and Dabiri as well for joining us. Okay, so the question I'm being asked to comment on is about building warranties and defects. So basically, we enter into standard building contracts with our contractors. We are not contractors; we're developers, and so the liability for producing buildings that are built according to specifications, the specifications which are very clearly spelled out in the contract conditions, lies on the contractors. And obviously with such contractual situations, there's a period called defects liability in standard building contracts, and it's during this period that such defects would normally come out, and the contractor would be liable for that. Subsequently, I mean, what we do say is that we encourage our buyers, following the period of defects liability, where the contractor is contractually bound to attend to any defects that become apparent. The period immediately after that, homeowners obviously are encouraged to take out home insurance of their own, and the insurance is not for the content of the home only, but also for the structure, for the structural elements, so against fire and all other things. So, in short, there's not like we don't give a warranty, but we do ensure that during the process of construction, there's obviously levels of supervision that will sort of ensure that, such major defects don't occur. And then whatever does manifest during the defects liability period, the contractor is meant to deal with that, or is made to deal with that. I hope I've answered the question satisfactorily enough.
Thank you, Mrs. Hughes. Thanks for that. And if the person who asked the question would like further information, they can always contact us at sales_diaspora@mixedafrica.com. My colleagues will also put that on the group chat. I think, yeah, they're similar to your question around the defect warranty. I don't know, Mrs. Hughes, whether you have any additional things to add around that. There's a question here around defect warranties and guarantees to buyers on delivery and quality. Okay, perhaps we'll move on to the banks then. The question on interest rates. Sterling Bank, are you able to give us an indication of what investors overseas are likely to encounter with regards to interest rates on mortgages?
Okay, I won't be able to give a specific interest rate, but it ranges between 10% to 20% depending on our evaluation, on your capacity and tenure and all of those things, and the mix of funds that we have as at when the person is applying for a mortgage.
Okay, thank you very much. I know that is usually dependent on the credit checks and profiling, but feel free to reach out to Sterling Bank as well with regards to that. Okay, so we have the question around fireproofing your investments, whether that's real estate or some other type of asset. Olaolu Abobade, can you please help us answer that question, particularly against association in the event of an economic downturn?
Okay, thank you. So I think the first, and to keep it simple, right, the first basic way to do that is ensuring that you're putting your money in quality investments that provide strong long-term returns. And you've spoken, I know Tayo spoke earlier about properties in gated communities, for instance, where you're seeing strong capital gains, or high quality, companies, or as we've seen over recent years, the kind of growth we've seen in the fintech sector. I think just plain vanilla, that's a very important way, because even without investing your money, you're taking a bet, which is taking a bet against inflation. But secondly, another way to do that, especially in a country where there's a lot of maybe sometimes FX volatility, is investing in foreign currency assets. And that would include some, just foreign currency assets. But the third way to fireproof your investments, if in the case of a downturn, is taking out edges. And if I'm sure like the bankers, you can speak in more detail about that. But taking out edges, for instance, depending on how long, if you're a portfolio investor, for instance, depending on how long your investments would last for, and you can take out an edge to protect you against certain risks, like currency, for instance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Olawua. Okay, so there's more questions here from Mixter. Mrs. Hughes, I hope you will stay on to ask this. There's a question about rental services Mixter can offer for landlords and what they include and the fees. That's one. And there's a question that is coming on WhatsApp, and I'll give this to Tosin. What to do in the event of a legal dispute whilst overseas with regards to title on your property that you've purchased? What do you do in the event of a legal dispute? So perhaps Mrs. Hughes, I don't know if you're able to go for the first question, and then Tosin can do the second.
Okay, thanks, Rola. However,
I think we have some sound problems on Mrs. Hughes's connection. So perhaps, Tosin, we can have you first, and maybe Mrs. can exit and re-enter.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question. So if there is a dispute on real estate and the party to the dispute in question is overseas, the first thing I think I would say is to be apprised of the details and the facts of the dispute. The second thing I would say is get yourself good legal representation in Nigeria. One of the things you can do, first of all, is to use the legal representation that you have in whatever country you are to find the reputable advisors within the market, which I assume is Nigeria, where the dispute has occurred. But in any case, we do have, as lawyers, we have fiduciaries because of the nature of the work that we do. So there are professional rules of conduct that guide our work. And so you can, make a relatively safe assumption that when you're dealing with, a counsel or lawyer in Nigeria, apart from the fact that there is variance in capacity, that, we are answerable to our regulatory organizations, and so you are sure that you wouldn't really run into a lot of trouble dealing with solicitors or lawyers in Nigeria. So get yourself good legal representation, be apprised of the facts, give all the details to your lawyers, and let them walk you through and handhold you through the process. However, I would prefer to recommend that we always take proactive steps to investments, because that will save us, all the time and effort that is put into dispute resolution. If you spend just a little more time to do due diligence, to properly evaluate opportunities, there is a likelihood that you may not even have situations where, after making investments, then you are dealing with, or let me use the catchphrase that we use in my industry, that you have bought yourself litigation. You can actually avoid buying yourself litigation. So instead of spending that money at that time, spend it to get quality legal and financial representation at the time where you're making the investment.
Thank you very much, Tosin. Mrs. Hughes, I don't know if you're back on and would like to have another go at answering that question.
Yes, I'm back on. I'm so sorry. I had a temporary technical glitch over here. So I was saying that on some of our estates, we do operate a short let service, but generally speaking, we're not estate agents. So I hope that answers that question. Some more questions. Yeah, sorry, Rolake.
No, thank you. That's fine, Mrs. Hughes. Thank you. Thank you for the response. Tayo, I'm going to come back to you. I think we have time to just.
Rolake, I don't know if I can speak to that last question, if you don't mind, maybe for like 30 seconds or a minute.
Sure, please, Tosin, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the major things that we see in the market is that there isn't a proper plan for the post investment risks, especially when you're buying brick and mortar real estate. So before you even venture to buy brick and mortar, you must be concerned about, 3 different kinds of things, which is one, tenanting the place with quality tenants that have capacity to, pay as and when their rents are due. You must be concerned about management of the real estate and get proper facility managers. Otherwise, your property would diminish in value, in very little time. And then I think the third one is to ensure that you are consistently able to upgrade and keep the property in good stead, paying all your taxes as and when they are due, and so that you don't impugn or put your title over the real estate at risk. So culturally in Nigeria, a lot of us know that, some people can just be badly behaved. So please be sure that, you screen and have, in the first instance, you get yourself quality tenants that have capacity to pay and would use your house, keep it in good condition and maintain, the obligation to keep their side of the tenancy contract that we have entered, because we are in a market where the laws are more favorable to tenants than the owners.
Yeah.
And so that's a major issue that you need to, be mindful of. And of course, managing the facility and the assets so that it doesn't lose value over time. So there are good facility management companies in the market. Just ensure that while you're thinking of that investment, you're also thinking of how you can keep the property in good condition long term.
Yeah, and I would also mention for some of our products at Mixter, we've actually created interesting solutions. So for instance, on Lackaway Lakes, if you buy a property there as an investment, you do have a channel, an option to put your property on our hospitality rental pool. And we take a small management fee with regards to managing and renting out that property for accommodation for hospitality guests, whether corporate or private guests. So there are some niche products that help people with property management, perhaps not in the formal sense, but certainly that is something that we're aware of at Mixter. I'm going to sort of give out the last 2 questions now. And Mrs. Hughes, I would like you to take one, but first I will go to Tayo on this question from Olatunji Pariola, and it says, with trends like semigration and emigration prompted by COVID, are you seeing some of those trends becoming more prevalent in Nigeria, e.g. someone with a job in Lagos but physically based in Ibadan or Ogun State as an example? In addition, what is the Airbnb market like for Nigerians in the diaspora that are interested in buying real estate for those purposes? So sort of 2 questions in one. If you could very quickly, 1.5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, good question, and that has also informed kind of like the spread in how people are willing to be located. Previously, everyone wanted to live very close to the CBD, but with a lot of work from home now happening, people are willing to live a little further out from the CBD. I'm not quite sure, and I don't have the data to support, say, people that work in Lagos living conveniently in Ibadan or Abeokuta or maybe even in Abuja. I don't have that data, but what we know is that there's a greater spread. People are willing to live a lot more further out. In fact, why we know this is at job interviews, for example, people are more keen to take jobs that allow them some flexibility. And when you check, one of the reasons is because they live further out and they're fine about that. So that's that. As regards the Airbnb short-let market, I think someone has already alluded to the fact that it's currently booming, especially in Lagos and Abuja. Again, for some reasons such as staycations and maybe some other factors, people just looking to do a lot more recreation indoors as against outdoors, so, you might live in Lagos, but just decide to take a short let, in some fancy location in Lagos. I know that Lackaway Lakes has enjoyed a lot of uptick, in the last 2 years, for their short-let services, so that's really on the increase. But just in case the person asking this question is considering short-let, as an investment, I like to warn, and I'll give you free advice here. Short-let is essentially operational real estate. That means there's a lot of operations behind it. And we see a lot of people get into short-let without understanding that there is some work to be done. There are services you have to provide. And if you get into it without having the infrastructure to provide those services, you will be patronized once, maybe twice, and then you begin to get bad reviews, and that business just essentially goes down. Again, as with every business, it needs some form of marketing, it needs PR, it needs branding. If you are not prepared to make all those sort of investments, you may have a bad experience with short-let as an investment. There are people that understand these things, they've made it their niche, and they are the ones that are really in a lot of these values. So if you want to get into it, do not think it's just quick and easy money. You need to understand that it's operational real estate and there's operations behind it.
Thank you so much. We're coming right now to the end. Hughes, I want to take my last question from Ayo Yeleke, but as you're taking it, I want all the other speakers to think about the one piece of advice they would give to anybody in the diaspora considering investing back home, whether in real estate or any other asset class. And to give their responses in a minute or under. I will start with Tosin and I will go around. But first, Mrs. Hughes, this question says, I'm more interested in the developer's ability to deliver developments and quality at current cost inflation situation in the country. What guarantees do buyers have in this regard? Mrs. Hughes.
Okay, thanks very much for that question, Mr. Oyeleke. So the developer's ability to deliver to schedule, I think it's a two-way traffic. So we guarantee our job, our obligation is to make sure that in a very professional manner, we engage appropriate contractors who know what they're about, who have quality standards. In-house, we have, an in-house team of, architects, project managers, engineers, quantity surveyors who are mindful of this. And our ability to deliver within the cost also very much behoves on our buyer as well to uphold their payment terms. So I think many of our customers know that we do have payment plans, and we it's very, very important that it's success generally. We do you leave us to do the technical bits, but also we just encourage our buyers as well to keep up with their payment plans. And I hope that sort of answers your question.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hughes. Very responses, and I'm sure if people want to engage with us, they can do so offline to get more detail on these issues. So, Tosin, you first. Then after that, we'll go to Mr. Atilola, then Olaoluwa, and then we'll end with Tayo. Advice for a prospective diaspora investor under 1 minute. Thank you.
So, to our diaspora community, let me first of all say that we need you. So we do need you, but I would also, say that for every investment opportunity that you are considering, please ensure to unpack the opportunity, number one, by considering the cost, considering the underlying title of whatever nature of real estate you are interested in, considering the returns, and of course, if it is a brick and mortar real estate, considering maintenance or management post making the investment. And finally, if you do not have the bandwidth to make brick and mortar real estate investing, please ensure that you also consider other elements that could give you exposure to returns in the real estate market, such as other types of real estate instruments where the assets are actually being managed by qualified asset managers, and you sit pretty in the diaspora earning your returns from that market. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Atilola.
Thank you once again. My advice for Nigerians diaspora that wants to invest in the real estate market is simple. To make life easy for yourself, partner or look into working with renowned names in the real estate sector. They can advise you about the kind of investment, the options available to you, and you can invest safely with good returns, and your mind can be at rest. The issue of integrity will be solved when you work with the right partners. And I think for every member of this panel, the institution they work with have good name enough for you to partner with. Especially working with Mixter, I think your mind can be at rest and can get the right investment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Atilola. Olaoluwa.
Thank you. So my advice for Nigerians in the diaspora, just building on what has been said, is, you know, there are uncertainties, yes, in Nigeria, but in those uncertainties are opportunities, and I would advise that they strongly consider, you know, increasing their investments in the Nigerian economy. And as Mr. Atilola said, it's important to partner with a reputable, proven manager who is able to navigate, you know, those uncertainties and ensure that, you know, you're able to generate the level of return they are seeking from the Nigerian economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olaoluwa. And finally, last but not the least, actually, you know, I will ask Mrs. Hughes too, but Tayo Ojosi, over to you, then Mrs. Hughes, parting words.
Okay, thanks so much, Rolake. And just to kind of round off, I have this slide from a document that I'd used previously. And I guess the first thing I'll say is, if you want to invest in Nigerian real estate market, download and read the Northcote 2022 Real Estate Market Outlook report. It's loaded and dissects all the various subsectors in the real estate market. But just looking at my notes here, a few things to note. Tosin alluded to indirect real estate insurances. There'll be REITs, which are essentially companies, and RECOs, which are essentially companies that are investing in A-grade real estate, and then they are dissecting it for retail people, individuals, companies to be able to buy little chunks of them. Be on the lookout. You may not have all the millions for, you know, to buy your own asset, but you can have access to these, you know, sort of A-grade real estate offerings by buying into REITs. And I think the second thing I would like to speak to diaspora, I mean, everything everyone has said is valid, and that's why I'm just saying something slightly different, is to look out for prop tech offerings, right? We know that there's been a fintech boom across the world, and even more importantly in Nigeria in the last, say, 5 years. But there is a prop tech boom about to start, and fintech is financial technology, prop tech is property technology. There are a few prop tech offerings that you should be on the lookout for, all right? And you can potentially invest in them at this point in time so that you can enjoy some of the benefits that I know are sure to come. I'll just leave it at that. Lots to digest. Do download the Northcote Real Estate Outlook report, and I'm sure you'll find it useful. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. And Tayo, I know Northcote do really, really fantastic industry publications, and thanks for bringing up prop tech there. We could spend a whole hour on it. Mrs. Hughes, passing on, please.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So I'd just like to, you know, again, thank everyone who joined, and to say that, look, I mean, we are here. We believe this webinar is directed at our diaspora audience. Just to let you know that we are here. We are, you know, we believe in Nigeria. We are reliable. We have we have real estate products across segments. We have, you know, the affordable segment, the mid segment, and also the premium segment. And, you know, our slogan is that we build communities, and with all the appropriate lifestyle facilities that go with each one of the different types of communities that we do build in each one of the segments. And to let you know that Yes, I mean, we're here and we're also there. So we are going to be in the UK from March 4th to 14th. We have a small team, you know, of our colleagues from Nigeria here who are taking the message to the UK. I do believe that they are going to be to be having a roadshow across 4 to 5 cities in the UK and also in Scotland, in England, sorry, and in Scotland. And we look forward, you know, to your participation. And just to encourage you to, I mean, look, you're Nigerians for all the good reasons that all our panelists and everyone, you know, Honorable Dabiri and everyone has spoken about on this call. Just to say, look, your real estate investments are safe with us, and we look forward to, you know, engaging with you more when on our roadshow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hughes, and thank you to our fantastic panelists, to Honorable Abike Dabiri, who spoke, giving the keynote, to our guests, panelists from different companies and organizations. Your insights were very valuable to help us make sense of the opportunities available at home. And for our partners and clients overseas, we're super grateful. We'd like you to stay engaged with Mixter and encourage you to email at sales_diaspora@mixterafrica.com. As my colleagues would also have shared, we're coming on our second roadshow to the UK in a year. We'll be in London, Birmingham, Glasgow, and Manchester. So please make it a date with us where you can, and we'll be happy to engage with you and tell you more about our products and how you can sign on to invest in real estate back home. Thank you very much again on behalf of the Mixter team. I'd like to wish you a great rest of the afternoon and evening, or morning, or night, wherever you are in the world, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you.